Jen, have you heard from Carol?
I would have to double check the dates, but yeah, I reached out to her to see if Dr. Schrader was going to come in March.
Is she
Um,
coming tonight?
I don't know if she's coming tonight.
Yeah, I saw her this afternoon, but I forgot to ask her.
Well, I saw her yesterday at the Life conference, and I forgot to ask her as well. But I'll email you tomorrow because Sonia Starr reached out looking to find a time to come to Fireside. So
You did?
Sonia Starr.
Oh, okay, good. Great. We'll give it like 2 more minutes to 6:35 and then we'll start, if that's
No,
okay with everyone.
no problem.
Hi,
You got
Ruby.
me as long as you want me.
Don't tell us that.
Uh, just making sure I can look at that. I can even move the slides. It's a miracle.
You're better than me.
I've done so many of these that I will say I like Zoom a lot better than Teams.
Yes.
Except the government does a lot of Teams stuff, and it's like, oh my God.
That's all my husband does.
I have to do a Teams meeting tomorrow. I am not a fan of Teams. It's clunky. Yeah, no.
Apparently it's more secure, I guess.
I agree. I think that certainly was historically true, but I don't think we're going to have anybody jumping in and spying on us that we care about. So I'm okay with that. And we'll see them, right? I mean, if someone jumps in that we don't like, Jennifer will throw them out of the room because she has that power.
It won't be her first time.
You know, if we get any hecklers, Jennifer will toss them with no hesitation.
There's Carol. John, Carol's husband is an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay. Well, I better be good about. I'll be nice about orthopedic surgeons then.
Oh boy, what happened? What did I miss? Trying to log in.
They're not very good at that. Many of them are not very good at sort of like talking to their patients because, as I said, they do their best work when their patients are unconscious.
This is true. This
Um,
is true.
their bedside, and don't know your husband. Their bedside manner is not the best in the world often, and it's like,
Well,
no.
Wade is a pediatric orthopedic surgeon, and I
That's slightly
have heard
different,
he
right?
is very good.
There you go. So
He sings Disney songs with his kids, so I think
I
he's
was
okay.
I was just in the hospital with a staph infection in my knee, so that's why
Oh,
I was dealing with the orthopedic surgery world.
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's all good. It's not. It was contained in the knee.
Good,
It's fine.
good,
I'm done. I'm out. I'm just doing a
good.
little rehab. Um. So it's all good. My wife's a doctor too. She's a developmental behavioral pediatrician at CHOP. So
Well, there you go.
and then two of my kids are doctors too. Well, one's a real doctor, the other one's in her last year of medical school, so she's not quite a real doctor yet.
But very close.
I will tell you, it has been a journey. She did AmeriCorps for a year, then Peace Corps for 2 years. Then she got a master's in public health. And then finally, after all of that, she decided, oh, med school. But and you'll probably remember this if you have been with your husband for a long time. She finished her residency interviews and she's about to rank them for the match, which is at the end of March. So
End of March.
yeah.
Big day. Big day.
Yeah. So we'll see where she goes. So
yeah, we were a little excited about that day. We had triplets between second and third year of medical school.
Oh my Lord.
We just wanted to see if Wade could really do it.
Okay.
How much stress he could take.
Right. Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. We had been married for a while. He was an engineer before he went to medical school.
So he did it not right after undergrad, like a bit like my daughter.
Right. So we thought we were ready to have a baby and that the baby.
You had 3 babies.
Right. We had 3 babies.
Yeah, my my brother-in-law and his wife, they have triplets who are now 30 something,
Oh,
so,
wow.
that's great.
Yeah, well, mine are 27, so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Anyway, should we do this?
Okay, we're ready.
So
So I'm Cherry Hancherick. my little partner over there is Carol Schrader. And Jen Tozier is from DDDS, the Family Engagement, and she can put her name and number in the chat if anyone needs to speak with her. She does. She really does wonderful things for families. If you need any kind of help, she's there. And tonight we have John Whitelaw, who's an attorney with CLASI, who is a national expert on Social Security, Medicaid. You are, right? You are. And Medicare.
I am. I don't tell too many people, but yeah.
It's somewhere I read it. So we're very fortunate to
Propaganda.
have
It's
him tonight.
propaganda.
We're fortunate to have him tonight, and he has a lot of information for us and some new information that is new this month. And when he's finished, he's coming back in February. And if anyone thinks that there's something that we would need more for him to go a little further on and talk about, and you have any wishes for that, would be happy to hear that also. So John, I'll hand it to you.
So if I'm correct, it's only like half a dozen of us, or am I missing a bunch of windows?
We're just under a dozen. Yeah.
Good. Just under, so the other thing is what I'm happy to do. I am not someone who needs to wait till the end of the presentation for questions, but so I don't know that I see the rest. I don't know that I can see everybody. So maybe either Terry or Jennifer, if someone can help, if someone has a question while I'm speaking, if you're able to raise your hand with a little button, and then hopefully Jennifer or I will see it, but I can't promise you that I'll see it, and then we can take the question as we're going on. This is going to be informal. This is not like I'm speaking to a large group. Unlike I just did a presentation a few weeks ago with Justice in Aging. And they have an incredible reach around the country. And this was about retirement, I think. There were 2,500 people on the Zoom.
I don't think we're gonna have that many.
But they don't get to speak, right? We don't let them talk, right? Everyone
No.
got muted. They do not get to talk to us because we can't possibly handle the, and they ended up like with 200 questions that they had to answer afterwards. But this is a much more intimate group. I am happy to take questions. If it's too personal and individual, I'll say, let's talk offline. But or if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. But please, if something's not clear, if there's some confusion, please don't hesitate to ask questions. I do want to note at the beginning, for those of you who may have seen, and you're going to see it only on the first slide because I was not sophisticated enough to get it on our new on the rest of them. This is our new logo. And the other point I want to make, so it's, it's not that different from the old one, but it is kind of new. And then the other thing I want to note for people is our disability law program has rebranded, and we are now in like some of the other disability rights organizations throughout the country, we are now going to be known as Disability Rights Delaware, which I think is a much better name for us.
I like that.
So Disability Rights Delaware is part of CLASI. And is the new name for the protection and advocacy system. And many of you will know Marissa is the project director of that. And we have a number of attorneys and staff who do that work. And so it's actually, I think this is a good rebrand. I think Disability Rights Delaware is a great name for us, for that part of us. And anyway, so we're going to talk a lot about, this is an introduction to the different types of benefits you can get from Social Security, and to try to make some sense of this alphabet soup, so that you have some idea of what it means. I'm not going to get in the weeds today. I do a presentation in the weeds for advocates, and it's like 6 hours, and it's all the nitty-gritty stuff. So, this is not very weedy. If you have specific questions, please ask, and I'll try and give an answer. But understand, this is not about the nitpicky rules. This is a much more high-level conversation today, and sort of more general. All right, let's see if I can manage the slides here. There we go. I want to understand, this is really important. A lot of my clients come to us really late because they don't understand that SSA, and this isn't about DSS today, but I will tell you, they make as many mistakes too. So they make lots of mistakes. Just because the Social Security Administration tells you something does not make it so. They get stuff wrong every single day of the week, and I just want to put it in some scope. There are over 65 million people getting some form of benefits from the Social Security Administration. So even if they make a mistake on only 1% of those cases, that's 650,000 cases. So there are a lot, and their error rate is a lot more than 1%. So they make mistakes. Do not assume that just because they've told you something that it's correct and that it can't be fixed. So that's just a really important baseline. If your little antenna go off and you're thinking there's something wrong with this, yeah, there may well be something wrong with it. And they do get stuff wrong all the time. Also, there's not a nice way to say this. Their notices are terrible. They're often indecipherable, and half the time they don't actually say what the administration is doing. So do not feel bad or that it's you if you don't understand their notices, because their notices are horrible. Some of them are like 15 and 20 pages, and you sort of really need to be a lawyer to understand them, which is sort of why you have people like me around. But so just, I don't feel like it's you. It is not you, it's them. They have bad notices and they make mistakes. Doesn't mean they're always wrong, but you just can't assume that they're correct. This is not so much for parents, but when I have done work with client populations directly, I can tell you one of the biggest problems is if you just ignore their mail. If you get letters from them and you let them pile up, yeah, it's pretty, sooner or later you're going to have a problem with that, because they will have sent you a letter telling you they need something from you or something bad is happening. And the fact that you haven't dealt with it makes it much more difficult to fix it later. So it's really important, even though it may be annoying, to open up all the mail, look at it, see if it's something that needs to be dealt with. And if it needs to be dealt with, either deal with it or get help. You cannot just ignore their letters, because the letter you ignore is going to be the one that does something bad. So, it's not quite a full-time job to deal with the paperwork, but it is a part-time job, and you have to just think of it as that. Probably not an issue for this group, but I want to talk about this a little bit, because 20 years ago, this was never a problem, and I'll tell you why. 20 years ago, people all got paper checks. So if you get a paper check, you know you're going to tell Social Security when you move, because you don't get your next month's check if you don't tell them. Now, because the vast majority of people either get money directly deposited into a bank account or put on a bank card, there is not an immediate consequence if you don't tell Social Security that you've moved, or the welfare department, same thing. But if you don't tell them that you've moved, you're going to miss the letter that tells you need to do something. So it's really important that SSA knows where you are so that you can get the right mail and deal with it. And it is something that does tend to. I have a lot of clients who are who don't do this, and it causes so many problems. You got to tell them when things change, especially if you're on SSI. When in doubt, tell them. Just tell them. And then they can never say that you didn't tell them. It's better to tell them too much than too little. Report work. This is especially important. Report work and give them paychecks. If a person who is getting a disability check of some sort is working, Social Security needs to know. There are various ways to report. You could either do it, there's some online reporting. You can fax it to them. You can mail it to them. They need to know how much the person is working, because if you work too much, they're going to cut your check off. And a lot of times people don't know that. And then sometimes they'll say, oh, Social Security knew I was working. How did they know? Well, they were taking Social Security. No. You got to go down to the office. If there is work being done, you got to tell them, and you got to pretty much give them monthly pay stubs so that they can deal with it. This should be obvious. If you ever go down there, I want to talk a little bit about that. I don't have a slide on this, but this is important. Keep copies and get receipts. There is a new policy at Social Security about appointments. They do not, with certain exceptions, and we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. So if it's an emergency, they don't really want to do walk-ins anymore. They want appointments only. So if it's not an emergency, you need to try and schedule an appointment, either by calling them or going online to get an appointment. We have not heard a lot of problems with people being inappropriately sent away from the office who've tried to go down with something that's emergent. But if this is an issue, I want to hear about it, because we want to make sure that our clients get access to them when they need them. And for many of my clients, they don't have access to electronics. They may not have a cell phone. So for them, making an appointment is quite difficult. In some offices in the country, the security guards turn people away. No, that's not acceptable. That's bad. Particularly in the Wilmington area, we have not heard about problems, and our relationship with them is very good. It's a lot better than it is with Dover or Georgetown, which, just to be blunt, they're terrible. They're just terrible. But if you are having trouble, if you get sent away, if you can't get help from them, please call me. And we will figure out what's going on, because it's obviously important that you need to have access to the program. This is a big one. Sometimes people wait 6 months, a year. They've been struggling with it. And then they come to us and it's like 6 months after they got the nasty gram, and it's like too late then. So don't wait to get help. If something has gone wrong, don't be embarrassed to contact us. It's not embarrassing to need our help. It is totally what you should be doing, right? Particularly if you can't resolve it very quickly yourself. I mean, some things you can resolve yourself very quickly, but don't get stuck thinking, I can only go to legal aid after I've spent 6 months trying to solve the problem. That is just not true. All right. If you're near the appeal deadline, file the appeal. You can always take it back. Don't miss your appeal deadlines. File the appeal. It tells you how to do it. It's not difficult. If you're well within the time, that's fine too. But just generally speaking, our motto is appeal now and think later. You can always undo an appeal if you filed it. If you missed the deadline, it's harder to get it back. So, and we file a lot of appeals. We do very few hearings because it's pretty clear if we're right or wrong, and so we resolve it. But sometimes you often have to do the appeal to slow things down, to buy time, to give you a chance to show that they're wrong, to take care of the problem. So we file a lot of appeals, and then we resolve the vast majority of them. And don't feel embarrassed to file an appeal. They may be annoyed at you. Too bad. You have the right to file. They're not gonna retaliate. That's not how it works. They're too busy to retaliate. It may annoy them, but that's too bad. File an appeal if you need to, or come to us in time, and we'll talk to you about whether they're right or wrong. But if you're on the last day and you haven't got hold of anybody, file the appeal. Just file it. Take it, mail it, fax it, take it down there. Okay. All right. That was just sort of an introductory sort of stuff about how to deal with them. I want to talk a little bit about the various types of benefits that you can get from Social Security. Obviously, depending on your circumstance, it's going to be one or more of these, but they're all alphabet soup, and it's important to know the difference between some of them. SSI, which is supplemental. So there's SSI, supplemental security income, otherwise known as SSI. There are child benefits, which you do not have to be for those you have to be 18 or under 19. There's childhood disability benefits, which is for adult children of wage earners. The Social Security disability, which is, you're a wage earner and you become disabled. There's Social Security retirement, which is you're working and you choose to retire. And then there are widows and spouses benefits. SSI, and I can't remember let's just see. Oh no. So SSI is for people who don't have a work history. It's a public needs program, and we'll just talk a little bit about what that means without going into a huge amount of details. It's a welfare program, and I don't mean that in the pejorative sense. It is you have to meet the disability or age requirements, but then you also have to be indigent. All of the other benefits are not welfare programs. They're insurance programs based upon how much the wage earner has paid in. And the way to think about it is when you are working and paying your Social Security taxes, you are paying into a system that buys insurance for you and your dependents. And it's 3 types of insurance: retirement insurance for when you retire, disability insurance in case you become disabled, and survivor's insurance so that once you pass away, your survivors might be able to collect on your record. So that's why when you see notices from them, it's often at the top of the letter, retirement, survivors, and disability insurance, RSDI. And then the amount of those benefits is all based upon how much you've paid in Social Security taxes. And that's based upon how much you make up to a certain amount. So there's a maximum. I forget, it's like 140 or 160, something like some 100 and something thousand. Anything after that, you don't pay on. So in many ways, economically, Social Security is a regressive tax. So as a percentage of your overall earnings, if you make $300,000, you pay a lot less in Social Security taxes than if you make 100,000 or 50,000, because they stop taking the money out of your check once you hit a certain threshold. I forget what it is for 2025 because my clients are never anywhere near it. It's somewhere between 130 and 160,000, that range. I just can't remember exactly when. Okay. How can you apply? In person, although you need to get an appointment, online, or you can use the toll-free number to get them to send you an application. Online is probably the best way to try to do it, unless it's SSI, in which case then you need to get an appointment and do it in person. This toll-free number, I just want to give you a caveat about this number as opposed to the local toll-free number for your local office. You should use this number exceedingly rarely. You should use it for only two things: starting a claim and requesting a statement of how much you get. Otherwise, stay away from it. Because much as I said they make mistakes, these people make more mistakes than your local office. It's a national number. They're terrible. Don't deal with them. Do not waste your time. If you have problems and you need to talk to Social Security about anything important, you call your local office. They all have toll-free numbers. If you just go Googling, you can find them. It's, Google Social Security Administration Newcastle. Or if you actually go on to the and look for what's called office locator and put in your zip code, it will tell you the office. And I'm pretty sure they have, when you get through that, they have the individual local toll-free number, which rings into the office. Do not use this number. And if you can't find it, email me or call me and I'll give it to you. Okay. Talked about this a little, but here we have a specific slide on it. It's just, Social Security is just an insurance program. You pay it, and your premiums are the Social Security taxes. And then it sets up accounts for you when you become eligible. SSI is a needs-based program for those who haven't worked enough to get Social Security or who only get a little bit and who are elderly and disabled. To get SSI, you either have to be 65 or disabled, and then you have to meet very stringent income and asset requirements. I'll give you one example of the assets and resources. The asset limit or resource limit is still $2,000 of which I see someone shaking her head in disgust. That's exactly what you should be doing. It is disgraceful. It hasn't changed in 40 years. There are proposals in Congress to bump it up to 10,000. The chances of that happening in the current Congress are between slim and none. So we are stuck with the $2,000 limit, and I could get all exercised about it, and I could all turn red in the face and yell and curse and scream, and none of that's going to change it. So the problem about SSI is you got to be poor to get it, and you got to stay poor to keep it. So what that then means people do is if they have money, they have to then pay lawyers, which is fine, to do special needs trusts, to legally hide money in special needs trusts, in able accounts, so that there is money for necessary things, but it doesn't mess them up for SSI. So there's a whole industry and attorneys who do this work. And I think it's incredibly valuable work. It's just a shame you have to do it for anything more than 2,000. And, it's just the way it is. I think planning is really important, particularly if you are an aging parent and you have a child. You need, and they're going to be on SSI, you need to be talking to a lawyer about how to plan this so that when they inherit something, it is done in the way that doesn't mess up their benefits or affects them as little as possible. Planning, I cannot stress enough and I'm sure most, if not all of you have already done this, you have to do financial planning for adult children with disabilities so that, because we see it at the bad end of it, where our clients on SSI get just enough money in hand from an inheritance or something else to mess up their benefits. Ooh, something did come up, so I'm going to do it. But not enough to fix their lives. I mean, if you get $10 million, you don't need SSI, right? You're fine. And if you have a guardian, you're fine. If you get $50,000, that's not enough to financially fix the rest of your life. It is enough to screw up your SSI for an awfully long time. So planning is really important. I see that whoever's on this called Ed Gutsate has raised his hand, so please jump in and say something.
Question, sir.
Yeah.
How have other states increased their asset
They
limit?
haven't. This isn't. So asset limit for SSI is federal. The states have no discretion on the asset limit in the SSI program. The SSI program is run by the federal government, and you cannot have more assets than the SSI allows. So there's not a different limit in Maryland or Pennsylvania or Oklahoma for SSI. Now, there might be for Medicaid that doesn't automatically come with SSI, but SSI, there are not different limits for the assets in different states because it's
Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
an
I
entirely federal program.
actually said that wrong.
Okay.
Well, no.
Tell me what you meant to say.
I think, well, let me think it through and I'll get back.
Okay, not a problem. This is complicated stuff. If it was easily understood, you wouldn't need me here to stand up in front of you and talk about it. You know, I've been doing that just to make this clear to folks. This is what I do. I have been doing this work for more than 35 years, so I need to understand it. This is very complex materials and difficult, the interplay between different benefit programs. And it is, unless you're someone who works with this on a daily basis, it's really hard to even get a handle on it. So there, as I said, there should be no shade on not understanding some of this or not getting it all. Okay. I'm not going to talk about this much today. There's a definition of disability. You have to meet the definition to get their money. A lot of people get turned down unnecessarily, and then they have to go to a hearing and get a lawyer to try to win their case. I will say I do get asked all the time, well, can I get disability based upon, and then someone gives me a diagnosis? And the answer is, that's actually not a helpful question, although I don't mean the person's not trying to be helpful. The diagnosis, with tiny exceptions, does not really determine whether you get disability. It's how severe is the problem. I'll just give you an easy example. Heart conditions can run from everything from a murmur that is irrelevant to you're in heart failure and you can't get out of bed. So asking if heart condition is enough to get a Social Security disability, the answer is yes, if it's bad enough. The same is true with mental health. The same is true with asthma or orthopedic problems. You can get disability for any physical or mental impairment or combination of impairments, with one exception, which is ongoing substance abuse. Just a bit of history. Before the 90s, you could get disability based on substance abuse, but Congress changed the rules. And if the reason you are disabled is because of ongoing substance abuse, you can't get disability. You can get it if it's the result of past permanent, if it's the permanent effects of past abuse. So for example, in my, I've done a lot of cases with folks who've have problems with alcoholism, and alcoholism causes brain damage. So if you have brain damage as a result of your alcoholism, even if you stop drinking, that's not going to fix the brain damage. And so you can get disability for the permanent effects of past drug and alcohol problems, but you cannot get disability based upon ongoing substance abuse. Does that mean you can't get it? No, just those cases are more complicated and tricky. This is an important concept. disability is not lifetime necessarily, right? I mean, yes, you may have a disability that lasts for your lifetime, and depending on your disability, the reviews will be very simple. And I'll give an example of one of those in a minute. But generally speaking, everybody gets reviewed. Every child who's on gets reviewed when they turn 18, and every adult gets reviewed, at some point. Some of them are really short, right? If you have a diagnosis that automatically gets you disability like Down syndrome, the review is going to take 3 minutes, right? If on the other hand, you get on at age 25 because you have depression, that is potentially amenable to treatment, and they're going to want to reevaluate you in a number of years, and that's fine. That's just how the process works. There's a whole process for it. It's not something to be scared of. If you're still disabled, the vast majority of people stay on. The one exception is children turning 18. The approval rate at that level is much lower, in part because a number of those kids actually are not disabled anymore. So examples being, you get on as a 5-year-old or 7-year-old or 8-year-old because you have bad asthma. That improves, and by the time you're 18, your asthma is way not as serious. You may get kicked off at 18. Not going to talk much about reevaluation. It's not a huge. It's not something we need to talk about today. I could do a whole presentation on it, but not today. SSI. This really is poverty money, right? The maximum SSI check you can get this month is $967 per month. Nobody is getting rich on SSI. Nobody is really going to. No adult is going to choose to live on SSI if they can work, because really $967 and having to deal with government people in your life all the time, this is not an easy existence. It is only about 70% of poverty. We can talk about things people do and things people don't do. There is not a mass of people sitting at home living on SSI when they could work because, making the choice that the SSI life is so easy. Yet, no. You cannot rent a decent place for the entire amount of that check. We are talking pretty significant poverty if you're living on SSI. It is, and again, I know I'm on my political high horse here, but the folks out there that say, "Oh, these are all just lazy people who don't want to work," it's like, give me a break. Some of our clients do some really foolish things, and some of our clients make many bad choices in their lives. But I really have not, in 35 years of this, I have not encountered, I could probably count single fingers on my hand of people who can work and who choose to live on SSI. It's just not a thing. This is just not how the world works, because look, $967, you gotta be kidding me, right? Anyway, I'll stop on that soapbox for now. We can come back to it later if people want to talk about it. The amount you get on Social Security, however, is entirely dependent upon how much has been paid in. So there's no set number on that. This is going to be relevant, especially for this group. It's CDB, which is what they're commonly calling childhood disability benefits. Who gets those? Disabled adult children, DACs. And that is a term. These are both terms that Social Security folks understand. So if you say CDB to a Social Security worker, they know what that is. And if you talk about DACs, they know what that is too. What's the definition of a disabled adult child? Someone over age 18 who became disabled before age 22, you can collect on the parent's account. It's really that simple, right? You do lose it, however, if you get married, unless you marry someone who's on Social Security. That's a little trick, a little thing that trips a few people up. We had a client who was on DAC benefits and she got married. She lost them, gone forever. Getting divorced does not solve that. So they cut her off, and she then had to get on SSI later after the marriage failed, because the marriage terminates your eligibility for DAC benefits. This is a really important benefit that a lot of people still forget about. They forget that because you don't become eligible until the parent is eligible. So if the parent is working and working and working till sick, not just eligible, collecting and working till they're 70, the child doesn't become eligible until the parent starts collecting retirement at age 70. And they may have been on SSI for 20, 30, 40 years at that point. It is a really important benefit. It can be a lot more than SSI if the parents have significant earnings. It gets you access to Medicare as well. So yeah, and then it's not needs-based, right? You don't have to mess with the SSI people, and you don't have to keep your assets and other income lower. Dependents and survivors. So we talked about a disabled adult child, minor children. If you have a minor child and you either die, retire, or become disabled, the minor kid can get benefits up to age 18, or if it's still in high school, 19. And then they continue if you're disabled. So that's just sort of, again, minor child benefits on a worker. Widows and widowers, I'm not going to go into that. Basically, you have a spouse and the spouse dies, there's a possibility of getting benefits as the widow or widower. There are, marriage has to, you can't just marry someone to collect on their deathbed. And then if you remarry before a certain age, you might lose eligibility. But these are important benefits that sometimes get forgotten about, for sure. This is mothers and fathers benefits. That's pretty rare. Spousal benefits. This one gets missed a lot, especially in the communities that I work with. Divorced ex-spouses, right? You can, if you're divorced, if your marriage lasted 10 years, you can collect on your ex-spouse. And you can take widows on your ex-spouse too, which is, so there's nothing more fun than telling someone who had an abusive spouse who has died that they can go collect money on this abusive spouse that they haven't seen in 25 years. So it's just something, there are spousal benefits and there are divorced spouses benefits that can be collected. All right. Retirement. I want to spend a minute on retirement because I think there's a couple of things about retirement that are not understood. And I got to see if I did a slide on it. Oh yeah, I did. So I will just do a little bit. You can take retirement as early as 62. So when you turn 62, if you're tired of working or you need the money, you can go down to Social Security and say, I want to take early retirement. We'll talk a little bit about what the consequences of that are. Or you can wait to what's called full retirement age. And I will say, I just learned this yesterday because even though I've been doing this forever, I learn stuff every day. Social Security used to, and they still call this sometimes full retirement age, FRA. They also have a new term for this. It's a weird term, normal retirement age. So if you hear or see Social Security talking about NRA, it's not the National Rifle Association. It is normal retirement age, which is the same as full retirement age, which if you're not there yet, it's going to basically be 67. For those few people now, it's sort of creeping up. It's somewhere between 66 and 67 right now. You have to tell me when you were born and I can look it up. But you can also delay retirement to age 70 and then you get a bonus. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that in a minute. So you can retire anywhere between 62 and 70. There's never, ever, ever a reason not to collect at age 70 because then you're just throwing money away. You should always collect no later than age 70. You may want to collect as early as 62. We'll spend a couple of minutes talking about those choices, but there's never, never, never a reason to delay it from a minute past when you turn 70. All right. What do you have to think about it? And this is more generally, I could spend an hour talking about this. If you retire before your full retirement age, they punish you. And if you wait until after your full retirement age and before 70, they reward you. What do I mean by that? You have what's called a primary insurance amount, which is how much you would get each month if you retired at full retirement age. If you retire early, they reduce it. And if you wait till you're 70, they increase it. And it's basically a sliding scale. What's the right answer for you and your family? There is no single right answer. Do you need the money? Do you not need the money at 62? And here's the difficult part of it, which some families don't like to talk about. How long do you think you're going to live? Because if everybody in your family dies at 70, why the heck would you wait? If everybody in your family lives till you're 95, you're going to want to wait because the longer you live, the more you get if you wait. But there's not an obvious answer for people, right? It depends. My clients can't wait, right? I have clients who are 62, they got no other income. It doesn't matter. They don't have a choice. Oh, and there is one group of people, of course there is, who aren't allowed to wait, and that is people who get SSI. Let me be really clear about this. If you are getting SSI, remember that's the needs-based program, you must apply for retirement when you become eligible, and if you don't, they can take your SSI away. Even though you're going to get a reduction, they don't care. You have to apply for it once they figure it out. And then if they say to you, and I can see someone at the top, so I'm going to pick on, there's Miss Joyce Fangman at the top here. So if Joyce is on SSI and Social Security finds out that she turns 62, she's going to get a little that says, "Dear Ms. Fangman, we need to talk to you. You must apply for early retirement." And if Joyce says, "I don't want to apply because I'm going to get less benefits. I don't want to take my early retirement. I don't have to." And then Social Security is going to say, "You're right, Ms. Fangman, you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to cut your SSI off." So practically, yeah, you don't really have a choice. So SSI recipients pretty much have to take their Social Security retirement early. They don't have to walk in. And sometimes if they want to wait, Social Security may not actually find them so early. So I'm not telling you have to go in and, bare your soul to them and say, "Oh, I think I'm eligible for early retirement. Can I get it?" If you don't want to, but at some point they will catch you. And then they won't punish you retrospectively. They'll tell you have to apply. That's just, it doesn't, we have to explain this to people, and there's nothing we can do about it, and they get angry, and that's understandable. But guess what? There is not a darn thing I can do about that because it's the rules. All right. Whoops. Did I get the next? There we go. There's also, I will say, there are complicated rules about disability and early retirement too. I am absolutely not going to go over these with you. If you are getting disability, or if you are looking after someone who is getting disability, as in getting the checks, and you are working, and you want to know if these rules, where you are with these rules, and you don't know where you are, and you don't have a full understanding of it, you need to get some expert advice. I cannot tell you the number of cases we see where people are getting cut off because they, quote, worked too much despite getting disability. And they may only have worked a little bit too much, but it doesn't matter. If you go $1 over, they're going to take your whole damn check away. And sometimes they don't find out about it for several years, so they take your check away going back for 3 years, and people understandably completely freak out about that. So if you are getting Social Security disability or early retirement, there are significant restrictions on how much you can work before you get punished. So if you're doing that and you don't know the rules and you got questions, you need to email me. Because I'm happy to talk about it, because a lot of what I'd much rather talk to you at the beginning before you do it, so you can know what you're doing, than you come to me 3 years later having been cut off and where they're saying you have an overpayment of $30,000. So, reach out early if this is an issue that you don't know. A lot of people, they have good networks. There are good places to get advice about this, but there are some people who are not connected and they get it wrong. And then the other little caveat is that if you are blind, and I mean legally blind, and that is why Social Security is giving you benefits, the amounts are different. So that's why this is confusing. If you're pretty sophisticated and you want to look at the rules, Google, they're all in their red book. And if you just Google SSA Red Book, it's a 35 to 40 page document. It's supposed to be for clients and their families, but my view is it's fairly complicated and sophisticated. Don't feel bad if you don't understand the Red Book. It took me a lot of years to understand the Red Book, and I do this professionally. So anyway, that's just a big caveat about disability and work. And I could have said the same about early retirement and work too. If you get turned down, appeal. If you get turned down, appeal. If they cut you off, appeal. If they cut your benefits, appeal, and then talk to somebody. It's just, we talked about this earlier. Appeal, 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 appeal. Always appeal. And then we can deal with it. That was all right. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. And I got to see, am I going to do 2 of these? Yeah, I'm going to do 2 of these. Living, and this is complicated, so I want to just slow down a minute and do it just a little bit of this. If you're getting SSI, your living arrangements matter because Social Security might reduce your check if someone is some private person, not HUD, but if some private person is subsidizing your shelter and you're not paying enough in rent, your check might get reduced. I'll give you the classic example. You have a child living with his or her parents. They weren't getting SSI as a minor child because the parents' income was too high. Kid turns 18, applies for SSI, is found disabled, is awarded SSI, but the kid is living at home. He's not paying any rent. He's not paying his shelter costs. Social Security is going to cut his check because he's getting in-kind support and maintenance, ISM. There's a technical word for it. It's a hot issue. It's a mess. It reduces your check by up to 1/3. They have recently changed the rules so that instead of focusing on how much the shelter you get is worth, they focus on how much you're paying. So if you're paying up to 1/3 in your check, you're much more likely not to get a reduction. And why does that matter? Because you can pay, particularly if it's your relatives, you can pay the money to them as rent, and then they can legally funnel the money back to you either by putting money in an ABLE account, by buying you things that don't count. It's a way to plan and to potentially get some extra money. So this is a good rule that's changed. The other one, not so much for middle-class families, I'll be real honest about that, but if the family gets food stamps, they're not going to deem income to the SSI person anymore. So I'll just give you a simple example. And I have a client in this because so I know about this one. I have a husband and wife. Wife had a better earnings record. She's getting $1,300 a month in Social Security. Husband did not work much. He worked under the table, but you don't get credit for that. So he's only getting $500 a month in Social Security. So the two of them are living on $1,800 a month. Under the old rules, they cannot get SSI because $1,800 a month is higher than the couple's amount, which is about a little bit under $1,500. Under the new rules, because they get food stamps, and I forget how much they get. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's $23 or $200. Because they get food stamps, the wife's income now no longer counts against the husband, and he can get $400 worth of SSI. So there have been a couple of important changes so that people can get a greater amount of SSI. I could do a whole training on that. If we have enough people for whom SSI is relevant, we absolutely can do that. But it's, again, one of the things that we work on. It's trying to increase people's SSI checks if they're getting reduced for reasons. It's like tax planning for rich people. It's sort of financial planning for low-income people. So I would have been a great tax lawyer, except I have no interest in helping rich people. But it's much more fun to help low-income folks get their $900, which, should never be reduced, but it frequently is. There are some things that don't count. I am not going to talk about ABLE accounts or special needs trusts. Many of you on this call know about them. They are the primary way to shelter funds for people on SSI. Very important. If you're a parent, you need to figure this out, because at some point it is likely you will pass away before your child. And if you want to, whatever you've got, you want to make sure that whatever you leave, or you're going to leave, if you're going to leave stuff for this child, that it doesn't mess them up for their benefits. So I said this earlier, I'm probably already speaking mostly to the converted here. You got to do planning. You got to go to a reputable lawyer who understands the game, and I don't mean in the play sense, but who understands the rules. And you got to talk about ABLE accounts. You got to talk about special needs trusts. You got to figure out how that the money is not just going to result in your child losing their SSI. And Medicaid, right? That's just as important as SSI. It's not really what we're talking about today, but planning is just as important for Medicaid as it is for SSI. That we talked. I'm not going to talk about that again. I do want to spend a minute on this because this is a big deal. I haven't been with you guys for quite a while. Back in, when was this? Late fall of 2023. There was probably late October or November. There was a devastating, I'm not sure what beneficial is, but let's call that beneficial, right? Very beneficial to claimants. Big typo there. Back in October or November of 2023, 60 Minutes did a beautiful hit job on how Social Security handles overpayments. A lot of us worked with the producers of 60 Minutes on this story behind the scenes to help them get it right. And they got it right. And they only came up with really sympathetic stories, and the outcry was devastating. It caused Congress people to get involved. It was a big deal. And the big deal was that up until then, if you have Social Security as opposed to SSI, and if you have an overpayment, and if you don't deal with it, they take your whole damn check. And that, as you might imagine, for clients who aren't capable of dealing it, would result in really terrible outcomes, like homelessness, or sleeping in your car, or having no money for food, because Social Security's default position was, oh, you have an overpayment, you owe us money, we're going to take your entire check until you've paid for it. The new commissioner, who is no longer there, we affectionately called him Mom, M-O-M. We called him Mom because his name was Martin O'Malley, and he's the former governor of Maryland, but his initials were M-O-M, and everyone referred to him as Mom. He had just come on he just got confirmed after this 60 Minutes show, and he was basically horrified, right? He was horrified at what Social Security was doing with overpayments, and he undertook a mission to make it more humane. And he did a lot of things on it. And if you want to read about them specifically throughout the course of the year, there's a link to the training I just did on this in January. It's a whole hour on how they've changed how they do overpayments. I'm just going to spend a minute here talking about the single biggest change. And if any of you have an overpayment and they're taking more out than this, you can get it changed. The single biggest change is that for Social Security overpayments, they will take no more than 10% of your check. Now, can that result in some hardship? Absolutely. But 10% of your check is a whole different game from your entire check. And so it gives you a lot more options to be able to deal with it. One other change is, as an alternative, if you can pay it back in 60 months, they will do that if that results in less than 10% of your check. So they have eased how they will do recovery, and they have also changed the standards for having a waiver granted. A waiver is where even if you've been overpaid, you don't have to pay it back at all. So they have made the standards for having it forgiven less tough, and they have stopped stealing your check to the extent that they did. I cannot overemphasize how important this is for folks on Social Security. Ironically, it's much less important on SSI because they were only ever allowed to take 10% anyway. So now the worst that happens on overpayments, and I don't want to minimize it. I mean, 10% is not trivial, but 10% is it's a whole different sort of world than 100%. And I think it is a major change in how they handle overpayments. And it's too early to tell how many more waivers are going to be granted, but we're hopeful that these change in policies will result in more waivers being granted and people not having to pay the money back at all. So he is no longer the commissioner. He resigned at the end of 2024. As I was chatting at the beginning before folks get on, we are awaiting the confirmation hearings for the nominated Social Security Commissioner. We do not know much about him in terms of his views about Social Security. He does not have a background in it. He does not have a political background of having made statements about Social Security. So we are waiting to see what happens at the confirmation hearings. We just don't know. As you might imagine, and I'm just going to say this, we don't trust the current administration. What a shock. I know. We do not trust the current administration to have the best interests of Social Security and its recipients, and especially SSI recipients. So we are, we're ready and we're waiting. We're going to, we will be here. We will see what happens. We have survived difficult administrations before. We will survive this administration. But we are waiting to see what happens on that. This should be obvious to people. As I said, a lot of stuff is get help. If you're dealing with a big overpayment and you haven't had someone look at it like a lawyer or like us to talk to you about, are there ways to deal with it? Many of them are wrong. And many times there are ways to get better repayment agreements. I talked about this. I should have just put this out before, but here we are. 10% default. This is the big change. They're only going to take. So if you're getting $2,000 a month of Social Security, they will only, quote, only take 200. Whereas up until this year, they would take the whole check. It's a big deal. You can appeal the overpayment. Dear Ms. Fangman, you have been overpaid. No, I wasn't. I want to appeal. You right? That's challenging that you were overpaid. That's totally legit. Maybe you were overpaid. Ms. Fangman worked too much. She told Social Security, but you know what? They never got to it, so they overpaid her. So she was overpaid because she was working too much, and they should have reduced, or they should have cut off a check, and they didn't. But she could also request a waiver because it wasn't her fault, and it's a hardship to pay it back. You could negotiate a lower repayment amount. Why would you do that? Well, if it was your fault. We're going to pick on someone else. I'm going to pick on Miss Hancher. Is it? I'm going to pick on Terry. Let's do that way because I know her so well. Terry was on disability benefits and she went back to work, and she even told the Social Security people when they called, why didn't you report your earnings? Because I knew you would cut me off. Clearly that is not that. Clearly you're at fault, right? And I'm doing that as an exaggeration. Most cases are more complicated than that, but that's an example of where Terry is not entitled to a waiver because it was her fault. She was overpaid. She knew what they would do to her because she was working, and she didn't tell them because she didn't want them to cut her check. But surprise, surprise, they found out. Now, just because you can't get a waiver doesn't mean you can't negotiate a lower repayment amount. So it's not, again, it's not death and destruction. It depends how much it was. It depends where you are in financial hardship. So there's almost always something that can be done to figure out that it's not going to ruin you financially these days. How do you deal with overpayments? Be persistent, grovel, beg, go in and cry. Show them how difficult, that you can't make your bill, and then come see us. We don't do every overpayment. We do some of them. It's just part of the work we do. All right, tips. Where can you get help? Here's our 3 offices. I do believe this will be made available to everybody, so you don't need to. I mean, you can write it down, but you certainly don't have to. I think this PowerPoint is going to be sent to everybody. Am I right about that? Someone tell me that I'm right or wrong about that. Where's the boss? Where's our boss?
Where's Jen?
Yeah, where's our boss? She's gone.
We will also have this on, we're recording so that we'll have it.
Yeah.
And then, yes, we can provide slides, right, Jen?
Yeah, John can send me the slides. I've been told that John sent Terry the slides.
I did send Terry because I couldn't find your email when I was doing this yesterday.
I could send
No
them.
worries.
Give me a minute because I want to fix the bad slide. I'll send it to you directly. There's a slide with a typo on, and I would rather not embarrass myself so much. So I'll fix that and I will send it directly to you. And then you should feel free to distribute it to whatever list, to anyone that was here. I don't have a problem with that. And then that, this is our offices. Depending on which county you live in, you should call our office. And then this is me. I try not to handle individual cases these days because I'm doing some other stuff. But, if you get stuck, email me and I'll either push you to one of our offices or depending on what it is, I'll talk with you and we can go from there. Oh, let's see. All right. I'm finishing a little early today because I'm just doing an hour on this, but it's 7:30. You've listened to me yammer at you for an hour. Comments, questions, complaints, criticisms, anything to do with Social Security that you'd like to ask or say that I either have covered or haven't covered, I am happy to take all of it.
So there is a comment noting the address listed for Sussex County, the Georgetown. Looked like it might have been the wrong address. So I know you had mentioned there was a few things that
You mean for us? No, this is right. This is our address.
Then
Good,
Stacy, I
George.
don't know. Stacy, if you want to come off mute, you're welcome to come off mute.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize it was for CLASI. I thought it was for Social Security.
Oh, no, 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 no. I
Yeah.
did not put their addresses on here. Well, because one, they're Wilmington, they don't have a Wilmington office, it's in Newcastle. They do have a Dover office, it's not there, and they just moved within the last year from Lewis to Georgetown.
Yeah, it used to be in the professional park.
Well, that was decades ago. Then they moved to Lewis.
Yes.
And now they've moved back. I was here you go, just because there's no such thing as TMI here with us. I was in the Georgetown office today fighting with Social Security for one of my clients. So, and I'm just going to tell you this, they are not a claimant friendly office. It's not you, it's them.
Good to know.
They are not a claimant friendly office. Just trust me on that. They're not. The best of the three is the Newcastle office.
Good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, Denise, I think, raised her hand.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation, first of all. It was fantastic information, and I look forward to getting the slides. But I was wondering about the rent that you charge for an adult child. How do you determine what an amount will be so that they will get the full Social Security amount?
And SSI, remember, if you're on Social Security, it doesn't matter, right? The rent issue is only for people on SSI.
Okay, that will be him. I haven't gotten it done yet, but yeah.
So firstly, you have to show that there's a landlord-tenant relationship, right? Which we can talk about that. And the other thing is, let's assume you happen to be the parent, which you may not be, but just for purposes of our discussion, I'm going to assume you are the parent.
Yeah.
One of the questions I would say is, Ms. Burke, you need to report this on your taxes, because if you say it's rental income, that's income. Now, you may not have to pay tax on it, but are you prepared to do that? And then you are going to say yes or no, and that will in part talk about our conversation. The next question I'm going to ask is, does the household get food stamps? Because I refuse to call it SNAP, because it used to be food stamps, and I'm just not going to call it SNAP because I don't like that term. Does your household get SNAP benefits? Because if you get SNAP benefits, you don't actually have to charge rent, and it's going to be fine. If in fact it is a rental agreement, the key change is, instead of figuring out how much the shelter is worth, so long as the person pays 1/3 of their check, of a full check plus $20, there will be no reduction. So, and in this case, it's like $340 or something. I forget the exact amount. But if they're paying $340 in rent, and it really is rent, and we will talk about that, then there will be no reduction. Whereas previously, they would look at the value of the shelter. You know, how much was and the cost, you know. If your mortgage is $1,500 and there's two of you, his share is $750. It's like, yeah, he can never pay that. But now the focus is on what the SSI recipient pays. And if you can do it, how that actually changes things is fine. Your son pays you $300 and whatever it is in rent. He gets a full check. And then to the extent that you wish to help your son, you can either put some of that money into an ABLE account, because then that doesn't count. You can buy things for him that don't count, like a phone. If you pay your son's cell phone bill, they're not going to ding you for that. If you have a child who is driving and you pay his car insurance, they're not going to ding you for that. There are all sorts of, if you buy him clothes, so long as you do it directly and don't give him the money to go do it, none of that counts. What counts is free or subsidized shelter. If this is if you would like some personal counseling on this, and when you're ready and when your son is eligible to get SSI and you want to chat with me about it, give me a call and we can have a chat.
Okay, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Ms. Hanch, is it? I know
Eric.
Ms. Hancharik. I mean, I've always got it right, but then I get it wrong. Ms. Hancharik,
I know.
you have
Just a couple.
patiently waited.
No. Just a couple of things. I actually go to the Social Security office in Elkton because it's so crowded. Much better than any of the others. It's quick. And so
Great tip.
So, but I'm in Newark, so it's handy. So the other thing is, when I went on Social Security this year, then Bridget it's straight, I didn't understand this, but so then Bridget gets two checks now, one from SSA, one from SSI, correct?
So let me just take a step back and sort of put this in the concept for people. You have an adult disabled daughter.
Right,
She was on SSI.
yes,
You are now drawing Social Security on your own account.
yes,
And because of that, your daughter is eligible to draw on Social Security on your account. The
Mhm.
amount that she gets depends on how much your check is. And if it's still less than the SSI amount, what happens is they reduce the SSI by all but $20 of the Social Security she's getting, but she gets two checks, which together should add up to $987.
they add up to over 1,000.
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to, but we won't talk about that.
No, they really didn't. And
They're
then,
supposed to add up to $20 more than the SSI check.
okay,
Because when you get on when you're on SSI, if you get Social Security as well, that counts as income for SSI purposes, except for a $20 disregard. Right? You with me so far?
yes,
So on the full check this year is $967, right? So if she's getting Social Security of say $267, she should be getting then $720 in SSI. But the total together of those two really should only be $987. If it's more than that, we should have a conversation to understand why, and there's probably going to be an overpayment at some point.
okay. It's not that much more. It's 1,007
It was
combined.
like $20. Who cares?
Yeah.
Let's not sweat it.
I'll pay him back.
No, you won't. No, you won't. Let me tell. I forgot to tell you one other thing. Very important. This is a good one.
Uh-huh.
The overpayment is less than 2,000. They'll just automatically forgive it if you ask them to.
Okay, thank you.
So let's not worry about $20.
So is room and board, so we charge Bridget room and board. Is room and board, if you say that, is it the same as saying rent?
No. Now we're getting really weedy. You used to have to do room and board.
Right,
Food doesn't count anymore.
okay,
Right. So if they're not messing with you, I would leave it alone. If they mess with you, you may have to rejigger that to be just room.
okay.
Does your daughter get food stamps?
No,
Okay. And you don't get food stamps either, right?
no,
Yeah.
we-
So room and board is a little trickier. Because now to some extent, because if they're only looking at shelter, she might not be paying enough. It depends on how much she's paying, right?
Mhm.
I assume because you're under the old rule, she's paying more than 300 and something a month.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's gonna be fine.
But it's nowhere that I marked that down, so.
Yeah, if it's a problem, we can deal with it. It's not the end of the world.
And there was one other thing and I can't
And
remember.
then the other thing, of course, is it's all, and I don't mean in the play sense. This is all a bit of a game, because the other way you play with it is if you want your daughter to have money, you put money in an ABLE account, and then because that doesn't count, and you can spend ABLE account money on a variety of things, and it doesn't count, and it's just a way to shelter money that the person with a disability on SSI can use. ABLE accounts are relatively new. They are a great tool for stashing away extra money for SSI people, so that they can spend it on things that are important.
So for our daughter, one of our sons is an accountant and he has an extra account that everything for, I probably do this all illegally, so I'll never mind. But anyway.
We'll have you come talk to me offline. If let's not talk about your illegal things that your accountant is doing.
Okay.
No. We don't need to discuss that publicly.
No. Okay. Thank you.
So
but
we
I
have a
will
que-
say planning is complicated, right? This is, and you definitely look, if you are a family that has some assets and some resources, and you have an adult child with disabilities, you are gonna want to plan, right? That's my message. The details, yeah, fine. We can talk about some of these little picky details, but what's really important is that if you have, so for example, Terry, you probably have a home that you own, and then when you and your spouse pass away, you need to figure out what you're doing with your home. And you need to have, and where bridges go. I mean, there were just all sorts of things that need to be planned for at some point before it's too late. And so what you do is you go talk to a planning lawyer and you set up a variety of things so that the resources, so what you're trying to avoid is that the resources and money go to the adult child with disabilities and they mess up their SSI and they're not enough for them to live on for the rest of their lives. And so
Right.
that's what you want to, that's what you're trying to avoid with planning.
So would it be legal if if in the will that person is not to inherit anything,
Yeah. You
and
don't have to leave. You
that
can disinherit your daughter.
right? And so
That's
I
another
just
way of dealing with it. So part of that, though, not your family. You got to trust the other people then to take care of your daughter.
right.
And
So
so if
she
you don't, and I'm just going to make your son to be the evil person today.
hmm
So let's assume you think your son, let's assume you have 2 kids. You have your daughter with disabilities and you have your evil accountant son. But you think your son is a good person and that he's going to look after his sister when his parents pass away. So you leave everything to your evil son, not knowing he's evil, and he inherits everything. And he says, "Oh, goody, I'm done with this. Good luck, Bridget. You're on your own." And I am not at all suggesting that would happen in your family.
right, right.
I am telling you it happens.
Oh, I know. I know.
So, and I'm fine. So that's why for some families that would be appropriate. For other families, that's probably not going to be the best way to deal with things.
So we have 5 sons. The house stays where it is. Bridget lives in the house. They come in and out, or somebody moves in, they figure that one out. And
Right.
when she passes away, the house gets sold and they get all their shares.
That's one way of doing it. There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is you leave her a life estate. You know, she
I
gets,
like
they inherit. So again, you leave the house to them, but she has a life estate. And the reason there are lots of reasons to do that, so that when she passes, there's nothing. She doesn't have she doesn't have an estate, and then the house passes to whoever's left. There's lots of ways to go
right.
to a lawyer. A lawyer will tell you the best way to. There are so many ways you can plan these things, and you want to think about taxes, you want to think about inheritance, you want about long-term care, Medicaid. All of those things come into play, and you also want the house not to get tied up by the state. In Medicaid estate recovery. So all of those things is why you go to, it's mostly elder law attorneys that do it, but it's the same. But they also often work with parents who have children with adult children with disabilities. It's a whole world out there. I know enough just to say to you, Terry, you need to go consult one of those people. Spend some money, go talk to one of those lawyers to help you plan, because I don't deal with real assets and real money in the sense that I deal with people who've got nothing. If you've got anything, and if and I'm not suggesting that you are extremely wealthy, that's not what I mean. All of my clients are indigent, and I don't do planning for people who have anything that needs to be planned for. I send you off to someone who spends their life doing that, which is great. These lawyers, the lawyers that do this, some of them are really incredibly good and creative and kind lawyers, and they do a great job of planning. And so, if someone comes to me and they're talking about, I say, you know what, you need to go see a planning lawyer. Go get a planning lawyer, make plans. I do think the hardest thing for many families, particularly, is when, is talking about, I'm just going to say this. I don't have much of a filter on my mouth. Talking about death is hard, but we need to do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Talking about death and disability and infirmity is uncomfortable, but we need to do it. I work with another a woman. She's a parent of an adult child with disabilities. She's 80. She's not going to be around for 25 more years. She needs to make plans for her son, and she knows it, but she's she doesn't want to deal with it, which is fine. But at some point, you need to deal with it before it's too late, even though it's uncomfortable. Even though it might be messy and drag up family stuff, you need to figure out a way to talk about death and disability in a way that's not threatening, so you can make these plans. Because I see the downside of families where, for whatever reason, and again, I'm not assigning blame, but I will tell you, I see the bad consequences of either the failure to or the inability to plan properly. And it's just messy. It's messy and ugly.
Yeah.
So plan. I could say one thing to you, for those of you who are on this call who have any sorts of assets that you want to protect. Plan. Spend some money with a lawyer to plan and get it taken care of.
So John, we have a couple questions in the
Sure.
chat box. There was a question, should you get a signed rental agreement if you are charging rents?
Yes, 100%.
1,000%.
1,000%, not $1,000, but
1,001.
Yes, but you also
Um,
have to decide if you're the landlord, if you're willing to sort of file taxes for it too, because it's a bit weird to sort of say it's rent, Social Security, but then not put it on your taxes. That's a problem, right? You got to be consistent with. You can't tell. Yeah, well, you can because you're probably not. You don't always get caught, but there's tension if you sign a rental agreement, but then you're not prepared to report that on your taxes as rent. That's a problem. You may not get caught, and that's not a moral judgment I'm making. Moral judgments in this area are way beyond my capacity. I don't do that. It is a potential legal problem if you are. And again, it may never bite you, but you just want to be careful, right? You say, "Oh yes, I rent an apartment to my son," and then on your tax return, there's not a single word about rental income. There's tension between those two statements, and you want to be careful. You don't want to unnecessarily say different things to different government agencies because you never know when that is going to bite you. So
And
yeah.
then we also have a question asking if you would accept, can someone email you about SSDI and working, and they have an ABLE account?
Yes. So what I would suggest is you email me, put a few of, do not send me a 17-page email. Send me a short email with a good time to call you, and then we'll have a conversation. And I appreciate those questions being asked before the proverbial what hits the fan. But yeah, we do a lot. I personally do a fair amount of this, and our office does a lot of dealing with the back end consequences. So I'm happy to chat with somebody who is working, who is thinking about working, and what the rules are, and where you can and what you can do about it. So yeah, I'm happy to send me an email, and we'll schedule a Zoom or a chat. Offline,
Okay.
obviously. I
If-
mean, not with 17 people on the call, but we'll have a confidential chat about your situation, and I'll give you my advice, and then you'll go do what you think is best.
And so there's another comment that there's been conflicting messages about having to report rent to a disabled child on taxes. You might want to take a peek at that one in the comment.
I will if I can find my comments, which I can't, so that's not good. I mean, you know what I'm going to do, which might make things
Stop.
easier for me?
Yeah, go ahead and stop the share.
There we go. Now the whole thing has come back, and I can see. Let's see.
You might have to go to the dots.
See, so I'm not sure what you mean by conflicting messages. It's rental income for tax purposes. Doesn't mean you have a net income, because there's probably expenses you can claim, and maybe you don't have to file taxes. But if someone is paying rent to you, you're a landlord. It's
Well,
income.
I'm sorry, that's what we expected, but then other people in the field have said, oh, no, you don't have to claim that because it's to your disabled child. And so again, just makes everything nice and confusing.
Yeah, I think that is not correct. I think
Okay.
you do have to report it.
Okay. Thanks.
Let's see. So this is a great question. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to talk a couple of minutes about it, because I think it's one of these ones where, yeah, this stuff is really complicated. If my daughter currently gets Social Security under me, I'm assuming this is an adult daughter, and she's getting disabled adult child benefits under me because I'm disabled, and now daddy retires. So the issue there is, if she gets more under her father, she should collect under her father. You just switch. And then, so I'm going to give you a different example, and you're going to love this. Now, she might not get more, because if they're, no, she probably will, because, I mean, she might. I have a family that I've helped for a lot of years. Mother and father. Mother had the better work record. Father had a smaller work record. Daddy retires first, so kid goes on dad's record. Mom then retires, so kid switches to mom's record. Daddy then dies. But because the percentage is higher on with death as opposed to retirement, she gets more on deceased daddy's record. So we switch back to daddy's record. Yes, you just collect on whichever parent you can collect the more. It doesn't affect the parent's benefit one tiny bit. And Social Security does not care why the parent gets Social Security. They don't care if it's retirement, or disability, and then they don't, or death, right? It doesn't matter to them. They do a calculation, and what you do is you say to them, "Hi, Social Security, my daughter gets benefits on my account. My husband just retired. Would he get more? Oh, yes, he'd get X dollars." Then you apply. There's no reason to give that money up. This is a great question. I love this. I love this. Would you lose Medicaid if she has it? You're not supposed to, and let me explain why. That was a problem before 1986. In 1986, Congress passed a special law, and I'm going to tell you what the law says. If you lose your SSI because you start getting disabled adult child benefits or an increase in disabled adult child benefits after July the 1st of 1987, which was the effective date of the statute, so it's pretty much everybody now, the Social Security, the Social Security money that you get is not to be treated as income for SSI purposes. So DACs are a specially protected class, and they're supposed to keep their Medicaid. If you have someone who lost their SSI, so let's assume you have a parent who worked and the kid is who worked a lot and then suddenly died of a heart attack. So the kid's going to get $1,500 a month on the deceased parent, which is obviously way more than the SSI. And then our lovely friends over at DSS see that, and then they send you the nasty gram. "Dear Johnny, we're cutting your Medicaid off. You need to call me, because we will ram that one down their throats, and they know better. It's supposed to come up on the computer system." I will say, on DACs, they're pretty good. There are very few of these cases. Why? Because on their computer system, which is a match between them and Social Security, for 99% of DACs, the welfare office gets told by Social Security that they're DACs, and they get told to leave them alone. So for most people, it's not a problem. If it's a problem, I expect you to be emailing and calling me, because we want to look into it. You are not supposed to lose your Medicaid because you lose your SSI because you get DAC benefits. And Congress was very concerned about that. So if that's happening to somebody, I need to know about it. I hope Ms. Famlin is gesticulating. I hope tell me that's not happened to someone in your family. No, good. Yeah, that's another. I've done work with DACs for too many years. I will tell you why it's got fixed, though. And I don't know exactly how often this happens in Delaware. The old regime used to be Social Security and the welfare department would only share data once a month, which is a nightmare, right? Now, in most states, they share data daily, so it gets fixed. Now, is every DAC case fixed? No, I've had. It's a problem where someone came from out of state, and I've had a couple of cases since I've been here in 7 years where they've messed it up, but that's not, but they fixed it. It's not a lot of cases. I'm not saying there aren't cases that they don't screw up, but if you have a disabled adult child who lost their SSI because of their Social Security benefits on their parent, they should not lose their Medicaid. That's simple. And if that's happening to you, email me, and we will we'll raise a little bit of trouble with our lovely friends. I will say, and I don't think I've been to this group since, there are two incredibly, relatively new now, but incredibly helpful new staff at DHSS. And I think it's important for us to recognize that, even though we're still frustrated with them, even though they drive us crazy, the new Medicaid director, Andrew Wilson, is a godsend. He is a good man, and he is a friend and a colleague of ours. Doesn't mean we don't fight with him. Don't mean that, but he is well-intentioned. He wants to do the right thing. He's been very helpful. The new secretary is the best secretary I have seen since I've been here, Josette. She came from the kids department. She is a lawyer, as is Andrew, which is helpful when we talk about when they're doing stuff that's illegal. She has been asked to stay on by the new governor, so she's staying. I will say since she's been appointed, we have achieved more systemic reform with them in that 18 months than we had in the 5 to 10 years before she became on. So again, I'm not telling you they don't frustrate the heck out of us, because they do, but we've made some significant progress, and at the top level they want to work with us. Well, she does, and some of the straight DSS people are less thrilled with it, but both of them are committed to working with us. So we are excited about this partnership. And again, don't get us wrong, we will hold their feet to the fire, and it's a lot of fun, but we are, and we will sue them if we have to, but we don't want to suing them. Look, it's inefficient. It takes a huge amount of resources to file a lawsuit. If I and my colleagues can write to them and say, this current policy is illegal because, and then we've done this now like on 5 or 6 issues, and they have come back and said, yeah, we'll change our policy. So they are not adverse to looking at it, because, well, the other thing is, we don't tell them it's illegal if we don't know it's illegal, So so we have credibility now. So there are some things that are questionable. That's not that sort of discussion, but some of these things where it's like, and they're not, just don't get me wrong. They are not, I'm going to give you one example. They are not doing this because they are evil and mean. They're doing this because they don't know the rules. Magi Medicaid, which is not disability-related Medicaid, but is expanded Medicaid that came in with Obamacare. Income eligibility for called Magi Medicaid, which stands for Modified Adjusted Gross Income, is largely based on income tax rules in terms of how you count income. It's how you use the tax rules to count income. And there are, tax rules are complicated. I'm just going to give you one example. If you are self-employed, some of you may be, you get depreciation on Schedule C. The welfare department had an old policy that said for people who are self-employed, we don't give them depreciation on Schedule C. The problem is that's a 2005 policy before Obama Medicaid came in, and it's just not legal. But they just never crossed their mind. How did we know this? We got a case, right? We had someone. They had depreciation and they didn't give it to them. So we wrote to them and said, that's not what the tax code says, dudes. And they said, oh, you're right. So they changed it. But so it's pretty esoteric, right? But they weren't doing it. It's not like some states, Arkansas, Kentucky, where they do policies deliberately to kick people off, right? That's not what's going on here. So it's not that they're being deliberately choosing bad illegal policies. It's they're not very good about keeping up. And so part of our job is to help them keep up with the rules. And when they get it wrong, our job is to make them fix it. So, and it's a lot of fun. All right. We got anything else in the chat? Let me go. I don't think we do. Let's see if there's any other that I missed. I don't think I missed. Did I miss any?
I think that's it.
Okay. Feel free to email me. If it's an actual case that we need to do, I probably won't handle it. We'll bring it into our office and one of my colleagues will handle it. But I'm happy as the person that wanted to chat about work and Social Security. I'm happy to have that conversation. It's a 15 to 30-minute conversation. I'm more than happy to do that. It's easy enough for me. So I'm more than happy to have that chat with people. All right. Thank you, everyone. It's been fun. I love doing these. You cannot, it's a important part of what I do. So I'm really happy. And I thank all of you for listening to me for the last 90 minutes.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. We'll see you in February.
Yeah, we will. Last Thursday in February, right?
Right.
Let me look. I think it's the Friday. Is it the Friday?
The Thursday.
No, it's not. Well, oh yeah, so it's the 27th, not the 28th.
Right.
Yeah. I'm thrilled to do it on that day. I don't have it on my calendar, but I knew about it, but it will be on my calendar right now. So
Thank you.
I will, and then we'll chat offline about whether we want to talk about some specific Social Security things, whether we want to talk about Medicaid, whether anything big has happened in the world of benefits between now and then, federally that's important. We can decide collectively of what people might be interested in for me to present on, and then we'll get back together and we'll have a chat about more benefits, because
And
I'm a
what-
benefits nerd.
Anyone has any ideas, please let one of us know, and we can talk to John about talking about that also.
That sounds good. And wish me luck tomorrow. I have to go tomorrow, which I'm sort of doing behind closed doors. There's Social Security has what's called an advisory board. They asked me to go talk to them. I have some connections there. I mean, it's a politically appointed board, so they may not all be our friends, but I'm going to talk to the Social Security Advisory Board about Social Security stuff tomorrow. So that should be fun.
Good luck. Is it here in Delaware?
No, I mean, they meet in DC, but it's remote. It's all remote. So I'm going to be doing, standing up and talking to these people tomorrow. And I have a little presentation. I've got a whole bunch of things to tell them. They may not be as friendly and nice as you folks.
You'll be great.
I may have to be sort of more defensive and less candid, shall we say?
Maybe.
We'll
Yeah.
see. It's fine.
Thank you.
It's political, and I mean, it's political, and I don't mean partisan. I mean in terms of the body politic, right? All of the Social Security rules and laws are political choices made by various branches of government, and so I'm off to have a little chat with them. It'll be a total blast. So maybe I'll charm them with my accent,
You can let us know.
Oh, I'll let you know next month how it was, and
Yeah.
I'll let you know next month if we know anything about what Social Security, if there's any big changes that the new commissioner is planning that would be relevant. So,
That's scary. Okay,
all
thank you.
right. Sounds good. Have a great evening, folks.
Thank
too.
you, John. Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Good to see everybody.
You
You
too.
too.